I'm Izzy Lee Fisher and I'm currently enrolled on the RISE project at the University of Worcester. So the RISE project is the Reach into Sports Employability programme that they run, which helps your professional skills and helps to develop and improve them and ready for the world of work after university. So each week I'm required to create a reflection log, reflecting on my meetings with Rosie on the Friday. So I have to reflect on what we discussed, if there's any questions I have or anything, and kind of looking at how it will affect my skills and my employability in the future. So one of the things that we discussed and looked at this week was a training policy document in association with my Dementia for Football project idea that I've got. So basically Rosie's produced a training policy document which I've got to look over, see how it's written, the structure, the format of it, kind of like the tone and the voice used in it, and I've got to read through it and add anything to it that I might, kind of like any ideas that I might have for it. So in terms of how that might have helped me, I obviously can see how a training policy is produced, how it's structured, the kind of tone used in it. So if I ever need to create a training policy in the future for an employer, I obviously can look back on this past experience and use the knowledge that I have gained from this in that situation. One of the other things that we discussed further was the football dementia project idea that I have. So she basically said what I want to gain out of it, what are my aims, what are the objectives, what can I get out of it in terms of my own professional development pretty much, and how it might benefit the community. So one of the things that she asked me was what did I want to get out of it. So I want to see how a development process basically happens, what it involves. So how does like a little idea go from here all the way to actually being delivered as a physical kind of activity, like a session. And also kind of the processes involved, so all the planning side, what needs to be done, anything needs to be scheduled, kind of the contacts that you need, so everything that's involved in getting a project off the ground pretty much. Another thing that we looked at was training partners and SIMSPA. So what SIMSPA do as a training partner, what Active Herefordshire and Worcestershire do, so together, combined. And we also looked at kind of how my modules can basically tie in with the RISE project that I'm doing at university. So, for example, at the moment I'm doing sports interpersonal skills and sport operational development. So obviously everything that I'm doing on the RISE project obviously can help me in those modules. So interpersonal skills, for example, is the interaction between a coach and a player or other people. So for example, the way that I might deliver a football session to an under-14s boys team on a Saturday morning is completely different to how a session might be delivered to a men's over 70s walking football sessions, and with some of those participants maybe having dementia. We also looked at the fact that sport operational development module can help me in my RISE project. So because both of them are concerned with sports development, sport like activity development pretty much, they both use elements of the same thing, if that makes sense. So while I might be looking at how a development plan is established in sport operational development, I can obviously use that in relation to my dementia football project. So how can I plan it? How can I make it look professional? And yeah, obviously the reflection video log every week also helps me in relation to kind of get out my comfort zone, obviously. Don't necessarily feel comfortable all the time with doing a video log, but it obviously helps me to gain more confidence, if that makes sense, to help me word things a little bit better in public speaking. And it also helps me to look back on each week, seeing what I've learned, how I've progressed as well. So from week 1, how do I sound, what do I look like, what have I learned, all the way up to, I don't know, week 10, for example. So each of these videos is kind of like a little progress step, if that makes sense, to help my employability in the future.